Welcome back to day 9 of the 25 Days of Flows, the Power Automate Advent Calendar. Today we're going to deep dive into approvals and kind of get a great idea of not only how to use a flow that we will be able to download from the app, but also to get a full picture of all the features associated with approvals. Approvals is a very rich feature set that solves many different problems. And if you didn't listen to yesterday's video, I suggest you listen to that as a predecessor to today because it'll give you a foundation as to why approvals are really important in most business environments. So today we're going to use two connectors, SharePoint and approvals. Both of them are standard connectors. We will also do a full introduction to the features today. And then tomorrow we're going to go one step above all of 8 and 9 and do something pretty practical with approvals. But this is building on what you learned yesterday, kind of showing you all the features. Before we go to Flow, to Power Automate, I want to point out what we call the approval centers. Now, you might remember yesterday I talked about the fact that approvals are everywhere in the business. They're in email, they're in team sites, they're in somebody's paper on their desks. They may come in many different formats. They may come even from service requests or from DevOps scenarios. But what if we could do approvals the same way no matter what, so that we would have one place to go to find out what's waiting for our attention? First of all, that would be amazing. But it requires a platform that enables you to manage approvals in the same way no matter where you are. So let's take a look at what I think is the best feature in approvals of all of its features, and that is the approval centers. And there is more than one, and I will explain that to you. So starting with the browser. When you're in Power Automate, on the left nav, you can click on Action Items. And this will let you choose either business process flows or approvals. Today we're going to use approvals. Notice that this page has all approvals that you have received, all that you have sent, and a history of everything that's happened to date. And we actually store this data per environment forever. Like, we don't delete it. So you would have to manage the purging of this data based on compliance, GDPR constraints, etc. And I'll put a link to how you would handle that below in the description. But for now, just imagine this is a great one-stop shop to find everything that's waiting for your attention, everything you sent out for someone's attention, and the history of all of those things that have happened. What's important here is that you do not see any approvals that were not sent to you or sent from you. So today, there's no way for you to see the approvals that somebody in your team might have sent to someone. They would have had to send them to you for you to see them. And vice versa. They can't see your approvals unless they sent them to you. So keep that in mind. The security focuses on the stakeholders in the approval process. Who sent it, who received it. What we'll do, which you'll notice in later on in the 25 days of flows, as we get to the more advanced flows, I'm going to tell you some really cool ways that you can raise visibility to those outside of the approval process. Plus, we're planning some things in the product itself over time that will help with this as well. And you'll be hearing about that soon. Okay, now when you click on these approvals, if it's on the Receive tab, so this is the Receive tab, and this is where you find all of your approvals that are pending your attention. This is where the ones that are sent by you and therefore they've not been responded to, because as soon as somebody responds to either, they move from received and sent into history. So you'll see this one, for instance, I truncated this screenshot, but you'll see this request called drawing annotation was received on July 5th, was completed on July 5th. 3 minutes after it was sent, the requester was myself, and the outcome was it was approved. Okay, so you get that history. Now, if you're in receive though, and the approval is sent to you, when you click on the approval, you'll get a panel that will pop up that will give you at the top an overview of what that approval is about. So you kind of get the details. You get the request, or you get the time you received it. And if they choose to, they can give you a link to relevant documents. And so you can see all of that up here. Who's asking for this? What's the title of this? Like, what's the point of it, right? And here's the details here. So apparently this document is going to pass through another approval on the executive level, and they just want you to let them know what that answer will be. And you'll drop down the drop down and choose the appropriate response, and then you can choose to add a comment. That's the way it looks in the browser. Now, if you're in your mobile device, basically what you see on the approvals panel is all pending approvals. So here is where you'll see a consolidated list of any approvals still waiting for your attention. And it will say when it was sent. So you can see these are old ones that I didn't respond to because they were demos, but they were sent out on December 1st, and I did not approve or reject yet. So that's why they're showing up when I click on. So first I clicked on activity, and then I click on approvals, and it shows me everything pending. Okay, so that's how it looks on your mobile device. Then you'll see approvals also in email messages. And so you'll get an email message. It'll have the adaptive card in it that represents the approval. It'll have the options that the flow maker gave it. In this case, I decided to use agree or agree with comments. And so, and it has a link in it exactly the way the other one did. But basically, these cards should look very, very similar no matter where they hit you, okay? But if you can't find them in your mail and you can't find them in your on your mobile device, you definitely will see them in the approval center. The challenge I will let you know about on the mobile device is when it comes to approvals, your mobile device has to be previously configured to the environment of that approval. So as you know, we have many different environments in Flow, or the possibility to create many different environments. And so if you only have a default environment, you don't have to worry about this. But let's say you create a second environment. Maybe you have a common data service need for a particular department, and you're passing an approval in that environment. You're building your flow in that environment. Then this device needs to be changed to the environment where the approval lives. Okay, just something to think about. You would change environments by clicking first on an account, and then you'll see the environment listed there, and you can just change to a different one. Basically, if the approval pops on your phone and it recognizes that you have a different device, a different environment, it will let you know which environment to switch to in the message. And so just switch to that environment. All right, also you may notice that these cards collapse. So after you pick a choice and you make a comment, they actually collapse so that you don't attempt to solve that problem again, because you've already done your due diligence. Now, the one thing that may be difficult for you to understand after you've answered is this card rolls up without any details as to what the subject was and what the answer was. And so you'd have to go to the approval center to get more information about this card if you need it. You will be able to see the title of the email message, and that might give you a hint. But everything rolls up. Now, this differs from when you put it on Teams. When you post approvals on Teams, I don't know if you knew you could do that, but it's very easy to post an approval on Teams, and we'll do that in today's flow. When you click on this and you submit your response, it collapses with more detail than the emails have. So I think the emails collapse with the least amount of detail, but Teams and mobile and browser, they all close with a little bit of detail on what happened. Okay, I love that I can even read the comment that they gave, and I can get a link to the approval. Now, this approval link is different than the link that we saw when this was open. So this link that was configured with the approval was so that they would have the document to look at. This link is in case they want to go look at the approval after the fact, but there would be no way to edit that approval. All right, so let's go look at this in real life in Flow. All right, so here we are in Flow's Approval Center, and let's just make a quick and easy flow. All right, so I'm going to just do an instant. I like to use buttons when I just want to try something, and it just helps me kind of get grounded in what I'm doing. And so this enables me to test quickly without having to need something to trigger it, right? I'll trigger it myself. And then here I'm going to choose approvals as my connector. Again, as you noticed in these 25 days of flows, I usually start by searching for the connector. And then I can click on that connector, which will narrow down my choices to only what's available for that connector. Makes it a little bit easier for me to find things. Notice that we pop out a link to the documentation on approvals so that you have it handy in case you want to read it before you start. Okay, so there's 3 actions on approvals. And so I want to help you to understand the difference, but we're going to start with the top one, which is just simply create an approval. All right, and then we're going to get a question about what type of approval do we want. And basically, approvals started out as just approve and reject buttons. But we heard your feedback and we changed it to custom responses where you can have any buttons you want. And guess what? You can have any number of buttons you want. All right. So these are the original approvals. And basically, the choices are everyone must approve, which means I'm assuming in this place that we're talking about more than one person is in the list of approvers, or it can be first to respond, which means we only need one person. So even though it may be sent to 20 people, as soon as the first person responds, in this case, the approval is done. Whereas in this case, everyone must approve before we actually end up with an outcome or a result of the approval. So just to get started, I'm going to choose approve, reject, first to respond, and you'll notice that the card adapts to my choice. So depending on which choice you make, that's the kind of card you're going to get. The kind of action you're going to get. So just keep that in mind. So now I'm going to just put a title in here. Now you can put dynamic titles in here. So imagine I have a lot of things up here. I could use any of my dynamic content tokens to create this title. But I'm just going to put this as my first approval flow. Okay? And then I'm going to assign this to myself. And you should see IntelliSense. So when you start typing people's names, and this has to do with my browser settings. So let me see if I get that to go away. There you go. And so you can see that it will suggest people based on your recently used people. In this case, I'm going to use my email that's in this tenant. If I didn't want to use the people picker and I wanted to use something from up here, like let me get the person who pressed this button, I can click my little advanced mode here and I can use any dynamic tag from the previous actions above me. In this case, I only have one. I'm going to send this to the user email. So you can do dynamic or you can choose to use the people picker to pick somebody or several people. And the details on this, I'm just going to say this is a simple approval process. No response is needed. No follow-up actions are needed. So basically, when you use create an approval like this all by itself, you're not planning to do something under here yet. So in this case, my flow is going to end right here. I'm not going to add any actions. So my process will end when the approval is done. Nothing will happen afterwards, okay? And so I'm saying no follow-up actions are needed. I could link to wherever I want, by the way. I can link to Microsoft. Visit the Microsoft portal, right? And if we look at advanced options, you'll find out that you can actually decide to change the requester on this, right? So you can actually decide who is this from. It doesn't have to be from the maker, all right? Enabling notifications will give them notifications in Office 365. Enable reassignment will give them the ability to reassign the flow, which you'll see. And by the way, we now allow attachments to approvals. So again, very rich feature, and I haven't even done much yet, okay? Let's go ahead and save that, and we'll get to play with the attachments too before the 25 days of flows are finished. Now you notice it said saved over there, and now we're just going to run this flow. So we're just going to click the little play button, and it's going to sign me into the only connector I'm using, which is approvals, and off we go. Now, as soon as I do that, a lot of things happened. First of all, in the approval centers, both the mobile and the browser, I got a new card. It tells me when it was received, it tells me the details, and if I hover, even though it's truncated, I can read all those details, right? I can also immediately approve and reject directly right here, or using the ellipsis. I can approve, reject, or reassign. But if I want to make a comment, I can click on it, and now I can respond through this right here, in here. And I'm just going to put it's a no-go. Okay, we're going to be mean approvals, right? And notice our link to the Microsoft portal still works, okay? And basically what you want to think about with links is you want to give people whatever might help them decide whether this should be approved or not. I always believe in giving as much information as you can to communicate what they need to know in order to make the decision. And so then I'm going to confirm that. Now, I answered that right here. So it drops off here. If I go to my mail, you'll notice that it did still come, but you notice that instantly when I opened it, it first had the buttons, but then it said up, she already answered this, and so it collapsed it, all right? Same thing happened on my mobile device. It collapsed it because I answered it somewhere, okay? Let's see what's different when we answer it using our mail, right? So let's just run this flow again. And then we're going to go to our mail, and we should get a new email fairly quickly. Okay, there's our new mail. And if we click on that to open it, you'll see that this time it won't be collapsed because we didn't respond to it yet. So it basically, it pays attention to everywhere this card is, and wherever the click happens, it records it as complete. And then it lets you know everywhere that it's complete, all right? So this time I'm gonna be nice and say, let's do it. and then submit that. And now if we go back to the Flow Approval Center, you'll notice that I don't have a received. If I look at my history, you can see that the first one was rejected and the second one was approved. And if I want to learn more, I can click on this. So whenever you see that link that says link to the approval, it will take you here where you can see all of the details, including down here, you can see the comment. Because in this screen, you don't see the comment. So this is a good thing to know. And your links will be there and so forth. All right. So, and if I didn't look at this, but anytime you send to someone, it's also in your sent. Okay. All right. So let's go one step further. Let's go back to that flow. And let's build on that flow a little bit. So my flows, create approval. Going to do a little edit on that. And now how would we post this approval in Teams? Can't be any easier. All I'm going to do is look for my Teams connector. And after I click on that, I'm going to use the action in Teams, post your own adaptive card as a flow bot to the channel. It's important that you see adaptive card and that you pay attention to whether it's to a channel or to a user. I'm going to post this to a channel. I have a channel called Adaptive Cards. I'm going to put it in the general channel of Adaptive Cards. And guess what you have to do for the message? Just click on Adaptive Card. So what we've done, anytime you use Create an Approval, you can also post it as an adaptive card. Here's the key. You must use Create an Approval to get that token at this time. You saw that there were other choices for how you could create an approval. This is the only one that will give you the adaptive card. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this. This time I'm going to actually use save and test, and I'm going to use, I'm going to start it over. Yeah. Okay, so we just run it from scratch. I'm running it as a test right now, but it's going to run the same way it ran before, only with the new action of posting to Teams. Okay, and so you can watch this run, and there it's finished. Now this is an important point I want to point out. Because we use Create an Approval, this flow is finished. It's not going to do anything else because I don't have anything else in here. But it's not going to wait to see what I did. It's not going to wait to see if I approved or rejected. It's just going to finish. I'm going to show you next how you would do that. So let's go back to our team site. Under adaptive cards, you should look right here. If you look on the left, it was black for a second, only because I have selected it, it went clear. So just like any other thing in Teams, when it's new, it highlights that for you so that you know something new is there. And then if you chose notifications, you would see that in your Office 365 notifications, like right here. Okay, so let's go back and look at this card, and it's exactly what we thought it would look like. This is a simple approval, no follow-up actions are needed. If I click on this, open it in a new window, there we're looking at the Microsoft site again. All right, again, I'm going to click approve, and let's put a little few different comments in here. Thanks, our team says go. Okay, and then submit. So now you can imagine that it collapses. And when it does that, so it's kind of like the card changes, it tells you what the title of it was, what the details were. It lets you know what the response was. It shows you the comments, and it links you to the approval, which will take you, as I had mentioned before, back to the approval center. But if it is no longer active, that link stops working. Okay, it's a very important point. This error doesn't surprise me because the approval is no longer active. Okay? It's a little thing that surprises people sometimes. So that's basically how you post an approval. Let's talk about what if you wanted to use the response in your workflow. All right, so we're going to go back to that flow and we're going to make some changes to it. Now, let's do this. Let's keep that flow. Maybe we want to remember that. And we're going to do a save as. So when you save as, you're basically cloning this flow. If I wanted to share it with my buddy, I might send a copy because the copy that they get will be have to be created by them with new connections, and they won't be able to edit my original. Okay, so just to know the difference between these two. All right, one is send a copy and one is save as. Sometimes this gets misread. All right, so I'm going to click on save as, which will clone this flow. And I'm just going to call this create approval and wait for a response. Okay, so I've cloned the first flow. When you do that, when you save as, it automatically turns the flow that you saved as off. And the reason it does that is because it would be very bad for you to have two flows doing the same thing and both of them running at the same time. Now, in this case, not a big deal because it's a button, but most flows are not buttons. You know, the majority of flows are usually automated or scheduled. So you could imagine if two automated flows doing the same thing were running at the same time, the chaos that might cause. So we let you decide, we turn it off for safety reasons, and we let you decide if it should come back on. So you can click turn on and turn it back on. Okay? Now I'm going to edit this flow and I'm going to change this, right? I might copy from it, but I'm going to do add an action and I approvals again. Click on approvals. Now notice I have start and wait, okay? I'm actually going for this day because we're going to get to do the start and wait together in the next couple of days. So on this one, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add a wait. So all I'm going to do is, again, I type my connections first. I click on them. Notice that I have start and wait. We're going to do this another day because that middle one combines the create with the wait. So before we get to the one that's the most powerful, I'm going to go to wait. All right. Now, this means, and I need to pass this the approval ID. Now, remember, you might have multiple approvals above you. So just pay very close attention to which approval ID you select. So if I had multiple, I would definitely rename this, right? And it might be for Team A. Let's do that for Team A, right? That way, when I get down here, what I want to look over here, I want to make sure I'm picking the right set of actions, okay? Because this is going to wait for the approval that we pick, all right? So in this case, I'm going to create the approval ID for Team A. Now, I don't have any others here, but that's my way of getting that approval. Now, all this action is going to do is wait for this to finish. Now, here's the cool thing about this. We created an approval, normally, then we posted that as an adaptive card. In the case where we want to post to teams, we would not want to use start and wait. Okay, we'd want to sandwich the action of posting to teams in between a create and a wait. Now we could put other things here too, like maybe we send an email to somebody right here. It doesn't matter, but here's what you want to remember. Whatever it is you decide to do after that approval will only run before the wait. Because as soon as it hits this wait, it's going to stop. It's going to go into an orange wait state, and anything after that will not run. So make sure you get everything important to you before the wait so that it's sandwiched between create and wait. And then if you've got multiple approvals in one flow, I would suggest you rename your actions so that you can identify those pairs. Okay, so let's see how this is different in the way it works. I'm going to test this. And I promise in a future day, we will do the start and wait. Right now, we're going to do create and wait for this particular day. Okay, so now it's running. Notice that it ran the first 3 parts of this, which means we currently have a card in Teams. There's our card in Teams, right? This was the other one because it's closed. Here's the one we just sent, all right? Now, if we look at that run, notice the orange icon. Flow is waiting. Your flow keeps running, so you need to be aware that this flow will not do any action after this wait. You could have 100 after that action after that wait. Flow is not paying any attention to them until this approval has been finished. And what you want to remember here, that finished means, depending on what type you chose, if you chose wait first to respond, then somebody has to respond to the created approval, and then this will end. If you said everybody must respond, then everybody in the to line or the assigned to area of your create action has to respond. Okay? And then as soon as they do that, then you'll be able to do the actions after that. So be aware that there will be no intermediary actions, and there will be no intermediary JSON methods being shown here during that waiting period. No matter how many people are responding, this will be silent until they've all responded, unless you chose first to respond, and then it will just respond to one. So if we look in our approval center, we'll see that we have that approval here. We do not let you know whether you are one of many or whether you are the only one needed. So I would assume, I would make it a best practice to try to respond to your approvals as quickly as possible so as you don't bottleneck the rest of the flow. Okay, this is what I think is awesome. And now I'm going to approve this. Now I kind of wish I could put it right next to, we did actually say first to respond, but I guess I can't. So I'm just going to confirm and then go back to flow. And you'll see, oh, that's the wrong one. Let's go my flows. That was this one. You can see the run succeeded because it's finished now. Now, if I open this, so notice this entire flow run took just about 4 minutes, but you get a total amount of time that it took to wait, right? So if this took a couple of days, you would get that here so that you would know how long it took for all those approvals to process, all right? If I open it, I can see the most important factor, which we'll talk about more of these this week, but the most important factor on this wait is the outcome, okay? The outcome. Outcome allows for many different responses. If there are multiple people, you would see approve, semicolon, reject, semicolon, approve, semicolon. It would just separate them, I think, with semicolons or commas. Sorry if I forgot. All right. It also lets you know in the body of this, basically who it was sent to, what they said, when they were asked to approve, and when they responded. So we're going to talk about this data at another 25 days of flows video, but I think this is a great introduction to you as to how approvals work. At one of our next 25 days, we're going to get even more in depth with this and learn how to do start and wait, and also be able to determine when should I do start and wait? I think you have a hint right now of when you should use start and wait, but we'll have more detail on that soon. So again, I'm wishing you the brightest, best holidays ever, and I look forward to talking to you at the next 25 days of flows tomorrow for day 10. Happy holidays and thank you for coming.